Well, happy to see you, and welcome to Sunday morning, the morning after the night that was the Montreal Canadiens getting goalied. They get Dustin Wolfed in Calgary last night, losing in a 1-0 final. Lots to get to today. Thank you, Rick Springhetti. That's why I was a little bit late. I was a little bit late this morning. I was just getting my second cup of coffee. Get that second cup of coffee going on this Sunday morning. Very, very busy morning for yours truly. The time change, not a fan. This is the type of time change for me. I don't know if you're watching me this morning from parts unknown, but in this beautiful country, this free country of Canada, we're going through a time change. Welcome to daylight savings time. So we all lost an hour of sleep. If you're waking up in Laval Province today, maybe you lost some sleep because the Canadiens couldn't score a goal against Dustin Wolf in Calgary, the second of a 4-game road trip that leaves the Montreal Canadiens this morning on the still on the outside looking in really of a playoff spot. As it was an interesting night, right? Wasn't it? On the out-of-town scoreboard, the Rangers and the Ottawa Senators getting involved in the dreaded 3-point game. The Boston Bruins are supposed to lose. They beat Tampa Bay. The Buffalo Sabres do what the Buffalo Sabres do, and that's lose a hockey game. So as it stands now, we wake up together on this Sunday morning with the Montreal Canadiens having played 63 games and 66 points. Ottawa now, the top wildcard team in the Eastern Conference with Columbus at 68 points, the Rangers on 68 points, both Detroit and Montreal on 66 points. So that's basically the lay of the land on this Sunday morning in the aftermath of that loss. I'm curious to get your perspective on what you thought about the Montreal Canadiens losing in Calgary. Let's get to some of those comments this morning. Right off the hop, as Ryerson points out, Dustin Wolf, goalies the Montreal Canadiens. Jakub Dobeš looked good. I might have to take back what I'm saying last week about Calgary. They could make the playoffs. It's amazing. I mean, they get performances like they did from Dustin Wolf. It's why I think, I spent some time in the last couple of weeks talking about the Calder Rookie of the Year in the National Hockey League, and maybe, Dustin Wolf, even though a long shot, but if that goalie can get that Calgary Flame team into the playoffs, you might want to look hard and fast at Dustin Wolf as the guy who comes in and steals the Calder from Celebrini or Lane Hutson or even Matvei Michkov at this point, who's back in the conversation. But Calgary picked up a big win. That was just their fourth win in their last 10. So what does it mean for the Flames? They've got 70 points. That's one more than Vancouver. The Canucks starting to heat up. They've won back-to-back. So you got Vancouver, you got St. Louis, right in hot pursuit of Calgary. Both the Canucks and Blues are on 69 points, which takes me to this question from Stuart Brooks, who I see often on Twitter. Happy to see him here this morning on the live Sunday show on youtube.com. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. It just tells YouTube that people are watching us and things are moving along quite nicely. But riffing off the video I did on Saturday, right? This is my third straight live show here on youtube.com. Friday, we did a 2-hour extravaganza with some of my favorite hockey people. We spoke with JP O'Connor. We spoke with Dan Robertson. And Marco D'Amico joining us from the Cayman Islands on his holiday to talk about Deadline Day. And Shaun Campbell will be my guest on this show all of this upcoming week. And we're going to get into the winners and losers from Deadline Day. And then we'll get through the Laval Rocket because Laval and the American Hockey League trade deadline comes up on March 14th. So it's this Friday. And so we're going to dig in with the voice of the Laval Rocket, Shaun Campbell, all week talking about David Reinbacher, talking about Pascal Vincent's job, talking about what Laval may or may not do. I mean, we're talking about a team right there with Rochester. They teeter-totter. Who's going to win the North Division? Do you want to take a look at that chemistry? Do we believe that Laval could add for a hopeful deep playoff run to win that Calder in that league? We'll answer those questions and more with Shaun Campbell coming up. But this one from Stuart here, when I spoke about Jordan Kyrou, right? And we spoke about the fact that the Montreal Canadiens, according to several hockey insiders, were poking around on Friday's deadline day, which ultimately ended up with the Canadiens doing nothing, keeping their guys, right? Christian Dvorak. I think teams were perhaps not too comfortable taking Dvorak's cap hit, talking about how much money he's owed in terms of cold, hard cash. Yoel Armia was being looked at by a couple of teams. Reports suggest that Yoel Armia, the Canadiens had a second-round pick on the table for Armia, and obviously they don't execute on that. David Savard, I don't know how significant the interest was there, considering that Winnipeg struck early, and the rumors around the Jets were David Savard. Well, Winnipeg goes in a completely different direction. And at the end of the day, I stand by my point of view. I think the value on what it means to these players, the core guys, and by that I mean we'll start with the captain, Nick Suzuki. Having these guys on his team for a playoff run matters more than the Canadiens just adding to the draft pick total, right? And are we fully aware? Do we understand how many draft picks the Montreal Canadiens have? Obviously, they have 2 in the first round this year. They've got 2 in the second round this summer. They've got 3 in the third round and 2 in the fourth round. So add them all up, it's 9 picks in the first 4 rounds of the draft this year, and it's 6 picks in the first 4 rounds of the draft in 2026. So in the first 4 rounds of the next 2 drafts, this summer and next summer's, the Canadiens have a total right now of 15 picks. That's a lot. That's a lot of maneuverability. And so I think that's the answer to those that look at, well, pick schmicks, you need, there's no such thing as too many picks. They've got 15 in the next 2 years in the first 4 rounds. If they want to look at potential players that are attractive to them in the open market, be it a UFA, be an RFA, being a straight up hockey trade, the Montreal Canadiens have either picks, as we just outlined, or we can take a look at roster players playing for Pascal Vincent in the American Hockey League. But just to wrap up Stuart's question here, the Jordan Kyrou talk, right? Jordan Kyrou, this is the type of player I like. You know, he's on the right side of 30. He's 26 years old. Signed an 8-year mega deal with the St. Louis Blues at $65 million. He's got a cap hit of $8.1 million per season, and he's 3 years into, I guess, so it'll be 3 years in September. Into that new 8-year deal. So his contract expires in 2031. And, you know, a few weeks ago, we were looking at teams like the Blues, right? Like Tampa Bay, where Julien Brisebois, again, trading away picks. I don't really disagree with his approach or his strategy, I suppose, when it comes to he'd rather have a room filled with skilled hockey players than a cabinet filled with prospects. Their window of opportunity is still open in Tampa Bay. Where the St. Louis Blues and others that decided to maximize on their window, we can look at teams like St. Louis. We can look at teams like Colorado. We can look at teams like Toronto and Tampa Bay and Vegas. Down the list we go of teams that were seizing their moment, so to speak, and a chance for Ken Hughes with all of the leverage that I believe he has in prospects and draft picks, that he can look at those teams and maybe find a vulnerability somewhere within those organizations. But it was Dave Pagnotta. Speaking on French radio, I believe, speaking with Tony Marinaro, and hinting and speculating at the fact that the Montreal Canadiens were in hot pursuit. And I suppose there were other insiders like Elliot Friedman throughout the course of Friday and even into Saturday night, suggesting that the Montreal Canadiens were looking at Dylan Cousins of the Buffalo Sabres. Well, the Ottawa Senators go out and pay a price and decide to execute on Buffalo. And I don't believe the Montreal Canadiens were in the business of giving up kind of what Ottawa had to in order to get Cousins out of Buffalo. So that's where I find the next bit of news kind of interesting, right? Because one thing Elliot Friedman had alluded to, and we kind of spoke about this as well with Marco D'Amico, and we identified the same 2 teams that Elliot Friedman identified on national television. That's the Montreal Canadiens and the Utah Hockey Club. So let me take you to this page now. This is a list of players that are RFAs, restricted free agents, the infamous offer sheet. And so I decided to more or less sort this through centers, because I think this is a shared perspective. This is a shared perspective when it comes to the wants and needs of Habs Nation this summer. Because I made my case about what the Canadiens did over Friday's deadline and the week leading up to Friday's deadline, right? They lock in Jake Evans, and their other UFA players are still active members of the Montreal Canadiens. And we spoke about the value that those guys have and the meaning they carry with them into that locker room on a nightly basis. But in my mind, it's crystal clear. The Montreal Canadiens have to make the playoffs next season. If they don't, I think you have a legitimate reason to be disappointed. So how do they get there? There's no way in my mind a reality exists in which the Montreal Canadiens do 2 things. One, they don't do anything about the 2C And two, what they do about the 2C is put Kirby Dach back in the position. So you were right. I was wrong. Kirby Dach is not the number 2 center of the future. I thought there was something there. I believe the organization, based on how they answered some questions around Kirby Dach over the course of the media availability on Friday, I think if we read between the lines there, and it's speculation, to be fair, I believe Ken Hughes and the organization probably think the way we do. Kirby Dach is not the guy. And so when we look at the potential of unrestricted free agents, we look at the potential of RFA players. And so, as far as I'm concerned, doing nothing about the 2C or giving it back to Kirby Dach to see if he can work it out, right? To me, that would be a fatal flaw to the development of the Montreal Canadiens moving forward. That's how I choose to look at that. Dramatic, fine, guilty as charged. But I've seen signs that this Montreal Canadiens team can put it together. I mean, you don't even have to look past the game in Calgary. The Montreal Canadiens' number one line of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Uri Slafkovsky is a dominant line in the National Hockey League. It is full stop a dominant line in hockey. And so how do you build off of that? How do you build off that? Doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing, as far as I'm concerned, again, is a fatal flaw to the development of this team. You know, I'm on board, guys. I'm on board. Ken Hughes says, "You don't want me to move your guys? Win." They did. They won. They had their 6-game point streak come to an end in the 1-0 loss Saturday in Calgary. But you tell me what you see here on this list, right? Now, again, these are RFA eligible players that play center at the National Hockey League, right? And we got some young guys on this list. You know, here's another name, JJ Peterka of the Buffalo Sabres. And I love this website because they list the agents of some of these guys, you know, Marco Rossi of the Minnesota Wild, right? And down the list we go. We can take a look at some of these guys that perhaps might be of interest to Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon if they decide to go poach a player from another team. And I personally believe, you know, there are obviously, I mean, Gabriel Verlardi's a nice name. Marco Rossi's a nice name. I like JJ Peterka a lot. These are 3 guys right off the hop. I have no issue with whatsoever. I don't believe Mason McTavish is on the table, but, you know, RFAs, I believe, are potentially on the table for Ken Hughes. Everything should be on the table if you're Ken Hughes, right? And so if we look at RFA players, okay, maybe unlikely if you're with me, right? So let's take a look at, you guessed it, the UFA players that Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon can go out and buy. I'll put it full screen so you don't have to look at my ugly face on a Sunday morning. You can enjoy your coffee without having the displeasure of seeing me. So is this more likely the way Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon go out and operate and do some of their business, right? Now, number 1 on the list is Sam Bennett. 28 years young, year 4, the final year, obviously, of his deal, because now we're talking about unrestricted free agent players. And again, I filtered it only for centermen because this is the area that the Canadiens need. And it was interesting too, right? Because the Canadiens, I mean, and why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? There was talk that maybe Elliot Friedman mentioned this as well, that maybe the Canadiens were poking around Mikko Rantanen. I mean, if you're not poking around, hold on now, just so you can, I just want to, so you can see my face because you know I'm being very serious here. I'm being very serious. I mean, if you're not poking around Mikko Rantanen, I mean, can we admit here that you're not doing your job? I'm not talking about going out and aggressively pursuing Mikko Rantanen, but let's be honest here, like no hurt feelings, right? Picking up the phone, calling Carolina, hey, what's up? What's it going to take for Mikko Rantanen? Do we have the money to do it? Mikko Rantanen is one of the elite wingers in the National Hockey League, and you go out and you do your job, and you look at the possibilities. Oh, maybe there's something there, right? Maybe there's something there. Okay, that's enough of me. Back to the UFAs. Now, I love Sam Bennett. I love Sam Bennett because not only is Sam Bennett a winner, Sam Bennett is the ultimate team guy, and I believe that the Four Nations experience, I'm going to choose to believe, maybe change the minds of some players that looked at Montreal with like skeptical eyes, right? Like the language, the media. They love you one second, they hate you the next second, that type of stuff, right? And I think Sam Bennett, remember, the first shift Sam Bennett took in the Four Nations was a fight against the Americans on Saturday night at the Bell Center. That was his first appearance at the Four Nations. He was dealing with an injury, right? And answers the call and does what he does. And the other element to Sam Bennett's game that I really like Cole Caulfield, we're talking about two of the elite goal scorers on the road. And to me, that's of significant importance for a team that is trying to, be tough to match up against on a consistent basis. And Cole Caulfield, I think we could talk about the fact that his game has reached another level in terms of being an all-around better hockey player. And Sam Bennett, to me, is a nice add in terms of looking at dollar for performance. Now, I get it. He's not the most fleet of foot, but we talk about the hockey sense. We talk about the culture a lot in this market. And I think we look at a guy like Sam Bennett, and for me, it's a very easy kind of culture fit into, I think, what the Montreal Canadiens are trying to accomplish here. And so, yeah, you can move down the list and look at players that are, punching 30, getting close to there. And it's not the most attractive list. Let's be honest. Outside of Sam Bennett, who else are we looking at? It's not Jeff Skinner. Ryan Donato, obviously. Some of the big names we saw on deadline day. There's Yanni Gourde. Some people were hoping that maybe Yanni Gourde could be an option for the Montreal Canadiens on Friday as terms of a rental. There's Anthony Beauvillier. We saw his name. Brad Marchand is now a Florida Panther. Brock Nelson's a Colorado Avalanche, not with the Islanders, right? So down the list we go. So a lot of the names that you saw leave in a rental type acquisition are going to hit the open market unless they find something tangible with their new team. So, yeah, it's not the most glamorous list of unrestricted free agent players. I personally believe that the Montreal Canadiens are very much staring down the barrel of using their cap space, again, I'll point out, if you missed it, if you're just joining us on the Sunday live show today, I went through the Canadiens picks they have in the first 4 rounds of this year's draft and next summer's draft, and it totals up to 15 total picks in the first 4 rounds combined in the next 2 drafts. And when you break it down to each summer, it's 2 first-round picks this year, 2 second-round picks, 3 thirds, and 2 fourths for 9 picks in the first 4 rounds this summer, 6 picks in the first 4 rounds next summer, 1 in the first, 2 in the second, 1 in the third, 2 in the fourth. So when you add it all up, to me, it reeks of transactions, future transactions that Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon could put their big brains in a room, sit there and come up with creative ideas to fill the 2C hole. So, a little bit more clarity on what the UFA market will look like this summer, a little bit more clarity on what the RFA market is going to look like. And on the surface, again, it seems more logical of some sort of hockey trade, a big move, because many insiders for a few weeks now have decided that this is the next bulletin of note for the Montreal Canadiens. And that is looking at how much money they're going to have on the cap upwards. If all goes right, the Canadiens could have upwards of $24 million. $24 million to sprinkle around in order to better their team for next summer. So that's what we're looking at. Let me get to some of your comments here before we get a little too carried away, because I want to get back into the Calgary game yesterday, because there's one thing that really stood out to me. I'm curious to get your reaction to the fact that why did they go with Jakub Dobiš? And listen, the kid played well, but I thought the decision was quite peculiar. I'll expand on that in a second. But I don't want to get too far behind on some of your comments here. Rick Springhetti's got a Shaun Starr mug. You can order yours at theshaunstarshow.com, free shipping in Canada. And if you order before 2 p.m. on weekdays, we can get it to you that day. Coffee number 2 this morning. Good morning, Vinny. Yeah, Ryerson, if you don't sleep, you don't actually lose it. I'm going to tell you something, man. rough night last night. Did not sleep the best. Did not sleep the best. The stupid time change. Not a fan. Not a fan of losing an hour. Good morning, Peter. Good to see you as always. I was wondering why I slept in and woke up at 8:30 this morning. Look at you, Rick, you big spending fat cat, sleeping until 8:30 in the morning. Christ, I don't even remember the last time I slept until 8:30. Good morning. Last night's game is the kind of game that will be played in the playoffs. Tight defense and good goalies. That's a good takeaway, James. That was a very, very tight game. You saw the goal that was scored from in close. And how about some of these numbers? Now, look, I guess I don't come across as an I told you so guy, but sometimes I told you so, right? And look at the numbers, Nick Suzuki. Look at the numbers, and I warned you about this on Saturday's show about ice time, because ultimately, yes, I agree. I think it was the right decision to not move Armia and to not move David Savard. Okay? About 90%, 95% of me agrees. 95% of me agrees with that, because I'm going to put something up here. I want to take a look at, let's take a look at the box score, okay? Because this is, if you believe the Canadiens needed to do something about the lack of depth to 2C or maybe get a winger, this helps your argument, okay? So the first number that jumps out at the page for me is this: 457 for your boy, Michael Pezzetta. And let me put this up on the full screen so everybody can have a clear picture of this. I'll get rid of James's comment. So there. So 457 is Michael Pezzetta's ice time yesterday. 457. Okay. Great, grand, wonderful. Nice to see this guy got a little bit more. Owen Beck got 1156. 1156 for Owen Beck. And I think if I open up Owen Beck's player card, we could take a look at his lack of ice time, right? 943, 749, 822, 1156 in Calgary in a tight checking 1-0 hockey game. Okay. This number, get ready for this. And I warned you about this on Saturday. 24 and a half minutes, 5 total shot attempts. Okay. Cole Caulfield had 8 shot attempts. The Canadiens have a dominant, lethal, credible number one line in this league. End of story. They are dangerous on the regular. And Nick Suzuki played 4 minutes on the power play last night. Number 14, the captain, did not get off the ice at any moment during the Canadiens' 2 power plays in that hockey game yesterday. And again, you look at the fact there that power play opportunities, 2, tight game across the board all over the place. And this is another massive number. 68.4% efficiency in the faceoff circle last night. Why? Because Nick Suzuki was an absolute beast in the dot. And this is going to become a regular theme. That number is going to be a regular number for Nick Suzuki in the remaining 19 games of the season. The other number that stands out to me is right here, 2440. Your boy, Lane Hutson. Lane Hutson, who had a total of 8 shot attempts in last night's game. So if you're all writing to me this morning in the comment section, our team got goalied last night, you are 100% right. Lane Hutson, 24-40 for the game. He played over 10 minutes in the third period in a 1-0 game. On the road, by the way. On the road, by the way. So this is going to be on the regular what we are going to be watching in the remaining games of the Montreal Canadiens season. Nick Suzuki is going to eat up a ton of minutes. Lane Hutson is going to eat up a ton of minutes. And the Montreal Canadiens are going to go as the Montreal Canadiens are going to go based on their elite level players. And that's as simple as I think we can look at this team down the stretch, because their general manager and their VP decided to put trust on the lap of the leadership group, and it paid off. Again, the heavy majority of my hockey brain says I am good with the lack of inactivity. But if you left Friday's deadline, went into Saturday's game, watched your favorite NHL team leave that game without scoring a goal, You're looking at the ice time. You got Michael Pezzetta playing less than 5 minutes. You got Suzuki playing 25. You got Lane Hutson playing half a period, trying to catch up. That's where it's at. And at the end of the day, I'm okay with it because I'm a big challenge guy. And the Montreal Canadiens are not in the business of renting players. I think next year's NHL trade deadline, I think will be very different than the one you went through this year, because the expectations in my mind have risen, as they should. And so the challenge comes in putting it at the feet of the players. You don't want to move guys, then win. They did. And now it's go take on this challenge. Go play, keep up that playoff intensity. The Canadiens have been playing playoff intense type games for more than a week now. So they got to ride this bad boy out. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot today. That stupid 3-point game between the Senators and Rangers was a pain in the ass, but it is what it is. And the challenge for the rest of the season is, can you take it on? And can you play high intensity hockey at a sustained level for an extended period of time? That's the challenge at the feet of Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Martin St. Louis, Sam Montembeault. Which takes me to a wild decision I thought on Saturday night. I don't get shocked very often. I'll tell you, I was shocked. I was shocked they went with Jakub Dobeš. And again, it's more proof that I don't have the balls to be a general manager or a coach in the National Hockey League, because I would not have gone with Jakub Dobeš. And I don't want this to sound like he's the reason. Obviously, Jakub Dobeš is not the reason the Canadiens didn't win a hockey game. They didn't win a hockey game because they didn't score a freaking goal. But I'd love to read your comments on what do you think the reasoning was behind going with Jakub Dobeš on the road in Calgary? Because if I lay out my opinion on why I'm going to say it. I was shocked they didn't go with Sam Montembeault. Sam Montembeault, who's started the last 2 games where he was the goaltender of record when they beat Buffalo in overtime, and then helped the Canadiens take a point against Connor McDavid on Thursday to begin a 4-game road trip in Edmonton. What shocked me about Jakub Dobeš, everyone, getting the call on Saturday in Calgary was you asked the players. You had your general manager had a conversation with your captain and said, "You don't want me to trade your guys? Go win hockey games." Hi, Hanky. Hi, Hanky. Yes, good boy. Yeah, good boy. Oh, there comes the. Oh, there's the. Oh my gosh, there's a big boy. Hanky, I'm trying to do a YouTube show here. There's a good boy. So, anyway, I apologize. But the puppy comes in. What am I supposed to do? And so your general manager says to your captain, "You don't want me to trade your buddies? Go win games." They go 5-0. They go 5-0, and they take a point from Edmonton. Right? They take a point from the Oilers, and they're a point out of a playoff spot. So you put the challenge successfully accomplished. You don't make a move because you gave the vote of confidence to your team, and you don't go with your number 1 goaltender in what is the biggest game of the season to date. I was shocked by that decision. I mean, that is testicular fortitude. I really do believe that. I mean, what Jakub Dobeš, who, granted, played in a win against Buffalo, right? At Buffalo on Saturday to start off March, right? But before that, hadn't played since that February 5th game against the LA Kings, where they lost 6-3. And Montembeault had gotten 5 straight starts. Montembeault had gotten 7 starts in the last 8 games, if we go in and look at it through a bigger lens. But to me, it was all set up. Everything was set up that you have your best players intact. The roster stays intact. You're very much in the thick of the fight, hoping to catch that second wild card spot, and you keep everybody and you go with the backup. What a gutsy call. What a gutsy call. And the takeaway that I have in the aftermath of that is Jakub Dobeš, man the frick up, man. That to me, because like we can talk about as observers, as fans, right? Like we watch these games and comment, and we ride the ups and downs of a season, right? Especially for a team like Montreal that's rebuilding. But what about the mental strength of a Jakub Dobeš? What about that? Now, that to me, everyone, was, I think, the highlight of the night for me. The Canadiens didn't win. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. Their 6-game point streak came to an end. But to put a kid like Jakub Dobeš in a situation like that on the road, I don't want to say hostile territory, but we're talking about a 23-year-old kid, essentially, who's played in 11 games in his career with the leadership group proud of their team, that they're very much in the mix. Like, the Canadiens have ticked a lot of boxes, a lot of goals that they wanted to hit this season to believe in the process, right? In the mix, in the mix, in the mix. Check, 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 check. Don't trade my guys. I want my roster. We fought this entire time. Keep us together. Tick it off the box. Find a dominant first line. Tick it off the box. Play games that matter in late February and early March. Tick it off the box. Be in the mix late in the season. Check it off the box. Like, they've done a lot of really good things this year in the overall massive sample size. So I am just so impressed by the courage I believe it took to put Jakub Dobeš in, and then Jakub Dobeš, pardon the expression, sacking up, putting his nuts on the table and saying, let's go. Let's go. And I will say I'm comfortable having that opinion on Jakub Dobeš because he showed us that opinion. This guy likes to talk. He's aggressive in his crease. His rebound and puck tracking, I believe, is better than Sam Montembeault's. And his numbers are good. And I like that he plays and has played pressure games. So let me get back to your comments. Walk me through, I want to know what went through your mind when you learned of the news that Jakub Dobeš was starting. What went through your mind after the Montreal Canadiens lost 1-0 in Calgary? In what way, right? I mean, a lot of people went into that game almost thinking it's win-win for the Canadiens. If they win, they're that much closer to a playoff spot, and they put Calgary further down the standings because if you need to be reminded, let me remind you, the Canadiens have 2 first-round picks this summer. One of them belongs to Calgary. So that's why people were talking like win-win. Canadiens win that game, and the rest is history. But ultimately, it didn't work out that way. Good morning, James. Felt like Calgary was smothering us. Very good commitment to playing without the puck. 100%. 100%. Yeah. You know what? I mean, the Canadiens, I thought, got better as the game grew older. Juraj Slafkovsky, Mike Matheson, not the most responsible decisions with the puck occasionally, but say, Levy. Well, look who it is. You got that right. Playboy. Yeah, the Leafs have, Peter Puck reminds us where the Leafs are at. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Good morning, insubordinate academic. Shaun Starr coffee mug arrived. Wife made fun of it. Worth it. Cheers. Hey, way to go. Thank you for supporting the show. Of course, all the proceeds keep the show going, and we can have better graphics, and we can do a lot of fun projects. More projects coming up this summer. And we got free shipping in Canada if you order at the ShaunStarShow.com. You got hats, you got all black, you got the two-tone, and of course you have the 11-ounce microwavable mug at the ShaunStarShow.com. We've been trying to, quote unquote, work it out at 2C for the last 20 years. Just get a real one instead of failing projects. I think it's been longer. I think it's been longer than 20 years. I have been waiting my entire life. Offer sheets. People want offer sheets. Thanks, Frankie. Good to see you this morning, Frank. Lots of comments today. Good to see Stuart back here. Another option for me was a 2-year deal for Duchesne to fill the void until Michael Hage arrives. He was very close to signing here once. You're not wrong about that. And I think, I don't want to be so repetitive as this comment suggests here. Get a real one instead of failing projects. I am all about that. I've been talking about that for the last few days. I believe. I believe the Canadiens are also on that page. I don't think they're looking at, who can we work out? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think the Canadiens have been shown by their players that they're ready. They're ready for no more projects. They're ready for come help us now. Come help us now. Good morning, Steph Howard. Good to see you. Proud member of the Shaun Starr Show. I think Doc should speak to Guy Carbonneau and reinvent his career and try to become the best modern-day third-line center as a hybrid defensive center. Interesting point of view. I wonder, though, like, when I watch Kirby Dach, and, like, can Kirby Dach find a way to get into that aggressive style? Because every now and again, you saw it, like, with Ridley Gregg against Ottawa. When Kirby Dach gets irritated or gets upset on the ice, he's a much more effective player. So maybe Steph's onto something there. Maybe there's a way for Kirby Dach to channel some of that a little bit more often. Dominate. I barely noticed Uri last night. He was out for a public skate. I mean, dominate the collective. The collective. I don't think I singled out Uri Slafkovsky as a dominant performer. I meant the line. The line has been dominant as far as I'm concerned. I didn't think, as I mentioned, I thought Uri Slafkovsky was a little irresponsible later in the game. We don't know how Dach will click with Ivan Demidov. Can this team afford to wait for that? Like, and I understand that if the Canadiens go out and trade for a better 2C than what they have in Kirby Dach, right? I understand it's not automatic. It's not an automatic plug and play. This player traded for comes here and presto, it's Patrick Laine is better at 5-on-5 and Ivan Demidov is going to get 130 points. I know it doesn't work that way. But when I watch Kirby Dach, I guess it also depends on, were you part of the group, the think tank that said, hey, this guy had a crazy injury, give him an entire year to find his game again? I was never part of that bandwagon. Personally, like, you're medically cleared, you're good to go. I'll give you some games to get your beak wet and find your cardio and find your legs again. But you've been playing high level hockey for a really long time. And personally, I think at this point, with Ivan Demidov, I'm sure that Ivan Demidov is going to be here next year. I don't know if trying to see if Kirby Dach can gel with Ivan Demidov is the path they want to really aggressively explore this summer, as opposed to, again, the fact that the team is in a very advantageous position. They've got picks, they've got prospects, they have a very good AHL team with good players, and they have a shit ton of money. So when I add, when I add all of those things up, in the logical side of my hockey brain says to me, trade. That's how I think they fill the void at 2C. Or, as other people have mentioned here, my boy Frankie wants to offer sheet Velarde from Winnipeg, and down the list they go. More Jordan Kyrou love from James. I like Jordan Kyrou a lot. I've been mentioning Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets. That's the type of guy I like too in Montreal. I'm not so sure if the Canadiens are going to be in on getting more wingers, with Ivan Demidov coming and what else is coming down the pike. I'm not so sure. What I'm sure of going forward, I believe with Kirby Dach or not figuring out the 2C is a fatal flaw to this team if they don't fix that this summer. Gary, good morning. I wish Sam was a little younger. Too many injuries. Talking about Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers. 28 years young, UFA to B for the Florida Panthers. What I like about Sam Bennett, I love that he's a culture guy. I love that he's a team guy. I love that he's a warrior. I love that he scores a lot of goals on the road, just like Cole Caulfield does. And when I put those guys together, I'm not so worried. Like, we talk about, Nick Suzuki, right? Like, some people don't think Nick Suzuki's an elite number one center in hockey. What hurts Nick Suzuki's reputation, and I think it's the same with Sam Bennett, is the lack of explosiveness, right? But they make up with it with other areas of their game that are very elite. It doesn't have to be. If you're not this guy, then, it doesn't work that way. As Peter Puck mentions here, if Demidov and Laine are your wingers, you better have a seasoned center between them that plays good defensive as well. But here's the thing. I'm not so sure the Canadiens look at Patrick Laine and like, okay, he's going to be a top 6 winger for next season. Laine's dealing with the flu, so he didn't play in Calgary last night. And yeah, maybe they missed Laine's shot on the power play in the 2 chances they had in that 1-0 loss on the road. Not there for that magical one-timer. But the 2C is the number one hole that must be filled. And then I think figuring out who else complements that line with Ivan Demidov and the future 2C of the Montreal Canadiens. And that's why I think a lot of people look at Jordan Kyrou like, yeah, go trade for that guy. Offer St. Louis, get them out from the contract. Kyrou's a $8.1 million cap hit, right? And he's on the good side of 30. I think he's 26 years old, Jordan Kyrou. I think Carey Price will be moved next summer for teams that need to get to the floor of the salary cap. We saw that with Shea Weber's contract, right? Where's Shea Weber? Shea Weber a Blackhawk now. His contract traded to the Chicago Blackhawks, though he was not part of the Canadiens at that point, obviously on Friday's deadline, right? Very much a playoff game feel, I agree, Mr. Academic, no doubt. Is Patrick Laine talk off limits? No. See, I'm just trying to catch up. To I'm about 20 minutes behind some of your comments here. As JFed points out, another opportunity for a 3-point game today. Massive game today, as JFed correctly points out. Yeah, Dobesh was awesome. But it was more. I just thought it was such a ballsy call, and credit to the kid, man. The kid is a real battler. That is so impressive to me. Didier Jadot. Bon matin, mon gars. Comment ça va? Thanks for being here with me this morning. Hank is back into the studio here. Rick Springhetti, maybe the Canadiens can consider for a short-term shot at creativity, bringing up Alex Barré-Boulet. Besides the first line and Hutson, there is no capacity to create offense. Not a great solution, but it's all they have. It's a great point. The Laval Rocket, by the way, looking at this team, man, they're doing unbelievable. David Reinbacher obviously didn't play on Saturday afternoon. But when we look at where the Laval Rocket are, 7-3 in their last 10, and now a 3-point cushion after sweeping the weekend with the Rochester Americans. So very, very strong season by this Laval Rocket team, and seeing what they've been able to do, right? Going with Connor Hughes, Caden Primo's season in Laval has been electrifying, right? They come back to beat Rochester Friday night, 4-3 final, 2-1 win over the Americans yesterday afternoon, and Laval is back in action on Wednesday. They host Bridgeport, and then they're on the road Friday and Saturday before coming back home to play 5 consecutive road games to wrap up the month of March. As Benoit Messier points out here about Dobesh, Martin St. Louis explained his decision prior to their game. He doesn't want to overburden Montembeault and keep him fresh and sharp. I understand. I'm aware. And thanks for bringing that to the table this morning, Benoit. It's just that, the Canadiens in that comment, right? Like the what I see there is inconsistencies. Like Arbor Jacki brought this up last week. The Canadiens have a system, right? If you're going, you keep playing. If you're making mistakes, you sit on the bench. And so I don't necessarily, again, if it was my decision on Saturday night, I go with Montembeault. And this is nothing to do with what I thought of Jakub Dobesh and how he played. I was just defaulting to Sam Montembeault is the Canadiens' number one goaltender. And I was just defaulting to Montembeault before the game. That's just how my brain was working. Because when I put those things together, it was, wow, you won 5 in a row. They didn't trade your guys. You got rewarded. And now it's like, it's playoff time, man. It's time for the playoffs. If the Canadiens are serious about getting into it, every game from Saturday all the way through game number 82 is a playoff game. And the other part to that was what made it surprising to me was the Canadiens played Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So it's not like the kid was going to go all of these games without playing. He had played against Buffalo to start March off, and then he was going to play either Tuesday or Wednesday. They got Seattle, Vancouver, Seattle, whatever it is, back to back. So that's all I'm saying. And again, if you're just joining us, I loved how he played. To me, it was the highlight of the night for me was Jakub Dobeš playing a massive road game where he's used to playing, and then playing, as some of you have pointed out, playing like a monster. It was just, to me, it was the less safe decision the Canadians took by playing Jakub Dobeš. And I respect it. I respect it because, it was, I didn't think it was an easy call, especially because of how meaningful that game was. And again, just so I don't read it in the comments, nothing to do with Jakub Dobeš and how he played, right? Ryerson wants to put $5 on Martin St. Louis for the Jack Adams. That's a nice little return. But I mean, I don't know. Oh boy, there's politics in the talk. We got carbon tax, Carney. Do I think Caden Primo is finished with the Montreal Canadiens? I wonder if the goaltending market, to me, is, I can't wrap my noodle around the goaltending market. I find it so tough to break down, how Caden Primo looks in Laval versus how he looked in Montreal. And remember, we thought Caden Primo was going to take over the job for Sam Montembeault at one point. Well, not so fast. And then Jakub Dobeš comes in, filled to the brim with confidence, and he's been playing. He's answered the bell more often than not, hasn't he? Right. So yes, people have been pointing out here. Rod Langway believes Monty is the placeholder. Dobeš could be the future backup for Fowler when this team is ready to win. Hey, Jacob Fowler, 7th shutout. Hobie Baker for Jacob Fowler. Boy, oh boy. Looks like the NC2A is not up to the Jacob Fowler test. Looks like that league may be a little too easy for him. I thought he played amazing the last start prior to against Buffalo. You're not wrong. Yeah, I think this is it right here. I think you've got it right when in terms of coach of the year. James believes he was super comfortable with Dobeš, and then more importantly, so were the players on his team. Was that Calgary's best game? Perhaps. As many. I mean, Dustin Wolf was also up to the task yesterday, picking up his 3rd shutout of the season, a new Calgary Flames rookie record in goal for the Calgary Flames, who are into a playoff spot today. Sheldon, good morning. In my opinion, Primo is locked into Laval unless they get a trade offer for him that would be worth the move. So get ready for this. Because Shaun Campbell, the voice of the Rocket, is going to be my guest this week on the channel. And we're going to get into the fact that the Canadiens made some moves during trade deadline week, right? We know the moves the Habs made. Jake Evans extended for 4 years. They papered Jakub Dobeš and Owen Beck to Laval before the deadline day. The American Hockey League trade deadline is on March 14th. So coming up this week, Campbell and I are going to get into the Laval Rocket. Do they add to their roster, or are they good going for what they hope to be a deep playoff run with the guys they've gone to war with all season long? And then we'll talk about the paper moves. Owen Beck, Jakub Dobeš. And how does something like that work? Balancing the business of hockey, of developing players for when the time comes that, as some pointed out here, to be the guy with Jacob Fowler, the future tandem in goal for the Montreal Canadiens organization, balancing that versus balancing and rewarding your team for a job well done, for being very good, the top team, one of the top teams in the American Hockey League, the first place team in the North Division after sweeping the weekend against their rivals from Rochester. So Caden Primo has been doing unbelievable work. Jakub Dobeš has been doing unbelievable work in Laval and now at the NHL level. So a world will exist in which the Canadiens are done playing. Laval isn't. What happens there? What happens? How does Pascal Vincent organize himself in net for a Laval Rocket playoff run? I think it's going to be a lot of fun to look through that. So that's what's coming up on this channel this week. Steph Howard says, next year, first half of the season, I'd love to see Owen Beck, Demidov, and Heineman on the same line. That's a lot of inexperience there in a primetime role, and I'm not so sure. Like, I liked Owen Beck's game yesterday. But I'm not so sure I see 2C in his future. Aces Cafe suggests that Cade Primo deserves another chance with another organization. You know what? I probably think he probably agrees with that comment, Ace. Just give me a chance. Just give me a chance. Logan Mailloux tried to do the Lane Hutson things last night. Didn't end too well. Laval Rocket never the win though. Doesn't matter. I don't think anyone's disputing. Like, I saw some people point out Sam Montembeault as the placeholder. Sam Montembeault gets a good amount of disrespect in this market. And look, everyone, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not saying Ricky, that you're being disrespectful to Jakub Dobeš, to Sam Montembeault, but like by and large, I see a lot of people. Sam Montembeault isn't the best goaltender in the NHL, and for some people, like that's a problem. Because I think by and large, we've all been kind of manipulated in a way, because we all perhaps grew up watching the Patrick Roys of the world. The identity of the Montreal Canadiens for a lot of people of a certain age has been tied to the goaltending position. And then, Carey Price retires, and the successor to 31 in the net is Sam Montembeault, who's a good goalie. He's a good goalie, but no, he's not a organization build around, cement him between the pipes, take down Ken Dryden's statue if it's still at Place Richoux. Here comes Sam Montembeault. No, obviously not, right? But where he was to what he's turned into is an unbelievable story of hard work, perseverance, give a guy a chance, and look what happened. Like everyone talking about, like I put a comment on the board here from my boy Steph Howard right here. He goes, put Heineman in a better light next year, right? Like Heineman is the guy I'm talking about. Give somebody a chance. Before Emil Heineman was a Montreal Canadien, that was his third team. Emil Heineman was a kid, and he was traded twice for a variety of reasons, right? And that's how the Canadiens got him out of Calgary. So that's all I'm saying is the story behind the player. And just because a player perhaps doesn't meet your own personal expectations, a little bit of a punching bag. But again, don't twist my words into. I'm not saying that Sam Montembeault is the heir apparent here. No, but he's also not a terrible goaltender, and I think should get a little bit more respect for what he's done and how he's helped. And I get it. Maybe Sam Montembeault cost the Canadiens Connor Bedard, but I will say by and large, he's helped this team. He's helped this team. Thank you for that. When I grew up, I'm a Ville Saint Laurent boy, grew up in Ville Saint Laurent, spent the majority of my life. I love that neighborhood. That place is always close to me, I love growing up in Ville Saint Laurent as a kid. And the Ken Dryden statue was at Plaz like my entire life. And I played hockey at the Ray Bourque Arena. I lived not far away from Ray Bourque, the pride and joy of Ville Saint Laurent. But Naz, thank you so much for pointing that out to me. I'm not so sure I was aware of the fact that Ken Dryden's statue I had heard at one point it had been kind of like moved a little bit, but I thought for whatever reason, I thought maybe it was back at Plaz or something like that. But no, good to see. It makes a lot more sense for Ken Dryden's statue to be at the Ray Bourque Arena, even though Ken Dryden isn't from VSL. Ray Bourque is. Who cares? VSL has had a Ken Dryden statue. I'm glad Naz has pointed us in the right direction. If you want to go pay tribute to once upon a time a great goaltender of the Montreal Canadiens. So, setting up the rest of the week for Montreal as we move forward here. 6-game point streak came to an end. Dustin Wolf, unbelievable in goal. And the Montreal Canadiens continue. They're halfway through their 4-game road trip that sees them stop in Vancouver on Tuesday night and then at Seattle on Wednesday night. So back-to-back this week to wrap it up. And then the Canadiens are back to their traditional Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday kind of schedule for the next 2 weeks. And seeing there, they're going to play 3 of the next 5 at home when they get back from this road trip. So that's what's coming up. And massive games. When the Canadiens get back home, when they deal with Vancouver on the outside looking in of a playoff spot, Calgary is up on them for the wild card. When the Canadiens play at Seattle and then come home, they come home to face Florida on Saturday night, Ottawa Senators on Tuesday night. So get ready, everybody. It's going to be a fun little ride. And as we pointed out before, the Montreal Canadiens have rewarded their players for a job well done this season. And now the next challenge for the Montreal Canadiens is to make their GM look good again and to have certain standards, certain expectations of what's required. And I think that's the other, and I guess I'll end on this note. The other silver lining, good question. I was thinking about that this morning. Where is it? Here we go. My Stanley Cup pick is Colorado Avalanche. That's my pick to win the Stanley Cup. I got Colorado versus Tampa Bay or is either Florida or the Lightning. Matthew Tkachuk, he's going to play, right, in the playoffs. Here we go. Lock it in. Florida Panthers get back to the Stanley Cup final and lose to the Colorado Avalanche. That's my pick. That's my pick for the Stanley Cup this year. I was thinking about it. I was looking that Colorado roster. Holy shnikes, man! Look at that team. Their forward lines 1 through 4. Holy cow, man! That's pretty good team. I was hypnotized. So lock me in. Final answer: Colorado Avalanche beat the Florida Panthers. Pierre Gingras, Dallas versus Colorado. Now there's a guy. We talk about offer sheets and everything else. The Dallas, I was going to say the Cowboys, but the Dallas Stars don't have a lot of money, and they go out and they make it happen by bringing in Mikko Rantanen. But it was the Wyatt Johnson contract there. I think there's a real chance. The Montreal Canadiens look at the RFA pool and decide to get a little bit aggressive. I don't think the Canadiens are afraid or intimidated, trigger shy, going out there and making a big time move. I don't want to say expect it, but I think the Montreal Canadiens are setting the organization up for big swings, big players, big moves coming up this summer. And that's why I think in part why they did not make a move on Friday. In a layered way, we know the conversation between GM and captain. And I think the other opportunity, just to finish my thought on the challenge aspect of the organization and where they're at right now, is I think the standard and the expectation of dialing in the playoff intensity in the remaining 19 games of the season is another test for someone like Lane Hutson. How does Arbor Jackeye look? How does Jaden Struble look? How does Uri Slafkovsky look? How does Alex Newhook look? And down the list we go of players that will be under the spotlight of management in the remaining 19 games, saying, okay, that player will be a part of our culture. We see it. That guy's engaged. That guy is dialed in on the regular. That's what I think also prompted Ken Hughes to not make a move, right? They keep telling us, and we have to pay attention when coaches and managers talk in this market. Pay attention. They tell us stuff. They keep talking about culture. They keep talking about growth. How else can you identify culture and growth without putting players into situations that matter? And that's where we're at. And that's part of the reason I believe the organization did not make a move on Friday. See how players adapt, react, execute under the spotlight of massive games like Saturday in Calgary, a massive game in Vancouver on Tuesday, and then coming home to play Florida and Ottawa. And so this is where we're at here. And boy, oh boy, the comments on the Stanley Cup picks, holy shnikes, are going all over the place here. Winnipeg and Florida final. Let's see what else we got here. The Magic Man, like John C. Reilly and Tell it. Shake and Bake, baby. Those are the Shake and Bake brothers. Quality moves are key, not the quantity of the moves. We're headed in the right direction for the long term. Good point. Thank you, Naz. See, VSL guys, man, they've got it all the time. They've got it all the time. 10:45. All right. It's haircut day tomorrow. So next time you see me, I should have a nicer looking coif. So that's it for me. We did a solid hour today. Thank you as always. Insubordinate Academic, thank you so much. Steph Howard, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate all the generosity and the loyalty right here on the Shaun Starr Show on YouTube.com. As again, all the proceeds go to keeping the show going and making sure we can provide the best content concerning the Montreal Canadiens with all our favorite guests, right? So again, a quick reminder before I leave you, Shaun Campbell on the channel. And for those of you with me, we're over 200 people. Please hit the like button. It really helps the channel, just puts a brighter spotlight on it. And for all the people still on the live stream that are members, we're at 19 members of the Shaun Starr Show. It's $2.99 a month. You can cancel anytime, and you get a lot of member perks. We're going to have casino night coming up soon. We're going to be having casino nights on this show, and I'm going to be able to give my members of the Shaun Starr Show free money. So that's coming up, and it's important to be a member of the Shaun Starr Show because we have a lot of perks, and perks are going to be free money coming up for casino nights, and then we're also going to get content out for our member community. And right now, if you're watching us, the members of the Shaun Starr Show have access to a video out right now that Shaun Campbell and I did as it relates to some interesting decisions around the Montreal Canadiens. And so if you're a member of the Shaun Starr Show, you can go to my video page on youtube.com and you can find that video right now. It's up there for you to watch. Members get it first, as they always do. And don't forget, I'm very much looking forward to casino nights. We're going to be having fun casino nights on this channel. And I'm going to be able to give you free money. Like really, like I mean it. No strings attached, no nothing. It's coming. Wait for it. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Don't forget, Shaun Campbell, my guest. Laval Rocket, trade deadline day, March 14th. We've got it fully covered. Enjoy your families. Enjoy Sunday. And we'll see you soon.